To work on this thing?
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of Bella Vista work session, October 16, 2023. First item is review of the minutes of September 25 and October 9. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about those. Okay. Unfinished business, we have none. Now, on the rest of the agenda, I was going to go straight to the discussion items because we have a number of people here. So the first discussion item is the wash bay, and that's Street Superintendent Karen Hunt.
Say what?
Hi. Good afternoon. Can you hear me better?
Yep, almost muted.
All right, so our wash bay has been part of the street department plan since 2016. It appears on our large-scale development from way back then as one of our proposed future additions to our street department. We've been pursuing funding for that since the street department became formed. And in 2023, City Council approved as a budget. It took us 7 years to get here. And what we're doing now without the wash bay is we have received an ADEQ permit for a car wash.
What is this? Ah. This thing.
Yeah. Speak back
A
to
little
that.
closer. Get a little closer.
Okay.
Oh, she needs to get a little closer. That's what I thought.
Okay. Okay. All right, beginning again. Our request is for a wash bay for our street department. This has been on the agenda, well, not the agenda, on our street department plan since 2016 as an essential part of a street department. We've been pursuing funding for this for several years, and for different reasons it's got put aside. And so in 2023, we got a city council approved budget. In the meantime, what we've been doing without the wash bay is we've had an ADEQ car wash permit that allowed us to have a pressure washer outdoors to be able to clean our equipment, wet our materials, any type of vehicle washing, for maintenance. This wash bay is very important to our department, and I'll name it, and not just our department, but citywide. So for the maintenance of our vehicles and the convenience of fueling up and washing when they come to the department, the fire department has other means of washing theirs in their personal wash bays at their departments, but the police have 35 vehicles, CDS has 5, Streets Department 44, City Hall 1, and IT 1, for a total of 136 vehicles at a minimum that could be using this bay. It's important for us to wash our vehicles for our fleet maintenance, the clean vehicles, the city representation, maintenance on repairs, welding. It's also beneficial for our efficiency. Right now, we use a garden hose to wet our base rock, which it's pretty time consuming to sit out there and wet the rock enough to be able to lay into place when we do a street build. The most important thing, though, is our ADEQ permit. This year, we had an inspection back in March, and at this time, we found out we were not in compliance. We had a new inspector who's basically said that we couldn't function as we were. So the main thing that was the issue is we couldn't stop the wash waters and the storm waters from commingling unless we took some measures that included, at their recommendation, digging a pit, adding walls, and a roof to prevent commingling of those waters, which is essentially building a car wash bay. And since we had the approved budget this year, it seemed like it wouldn't be a very big deal. So in the meantime, what we've done is we've moved a pressure washer indoors into our department so that we won't be non-compliant with the ADEQ permit. This is a temporary Band-Aid that is going to be difficult for our entire department, especially when we hit the winter season and we're washing off salt and sand off our vehicles on a continual basis. We were able to do this because we have a drain in the bay that the water will go into. We would still have significant sand and salt that would be present, but this is a Band-Aid, and we could temporarily wash them indoors at great inconvenience and time-consuming efforts. Excuse me. So the recommendation essentially was to build a wash bay. We had the funding for a wash bay. So we had a couple estimates, and our first estimate back in 2017 was $170,000. Then we got an updated estimate in 2022, which came in at $220,000. And we put it out for bid. We asked for architect engineer estimate, and they were unable to give us one because the prices have changed so drastically. They couldn't guarantee it would be in line with the actual bids received. Last Thursday, we did the bid opening. And in order to do this, we thought we would save every penny we could. We're doing the paving in-house. We've done the prep pad, or preparation of the pad in-house. We have chosen to match the exterior to our street department, which is a less expensive finish. We had all the utilities brought to the site. We were able to utilize the landscaping plan of this facility because of the proximity. And we were able to get community development to do an administrative review of our LSD. So despite all of these measures, we had a sticker shock when we opened up our bids, which was Thursday. That's why it's on a discussion item rather than an official memo. Our low bid was $542,000. The next bid came in at $545,870, and our third bid was $717,477. So we reviewed the two bids. They're pretty consistent in price. For line items, the difference comes out to be, hold on, I jotted it down on a sheet here. It was just around $4,000 different, $3,870. So we reached out to the architect engineer to find out if there was a way to value engineer down the project, maybe some options that might save some money. There were things they could change on one end that would cost more on the other, or change something here and it costs more there. So ultimately the bottom line was going to remain relatively the same with the addition of the engineering fees. So Bentonville had done a 3-bay bid recently, and theirs came in at 1.3 for a 3-bay. And that would be the two internal walls sharing, of course, where ours is just a single bay. So the price seems to be in line with the market price, unfortunately. In order to be good stewards of the taxpayer monies, I've looked at every way possible we could save money. We've implemented every way we could save money. And I do think that the delaying of this project by 7 years has added to this cost. And I'm concerned that if we postpone it one more time, that price will continue to rise. So when we come to the meeting next Monday, I'm going to request a contract award and also a budget transfer to cover this project and get it completed.
Is there any questions?
We're talking about a wash bay.
Correct. A
Two-
car wash,
Two
single bay,
two walls,
a roof,
a roof,
and a...
drive through like you,
Correct.
except
No
it's
doors.
except indoor?
Pull up, no doors. You would pull through just like you would at like the local gas station.
But it's gonna be
It's
bigger
a
for,
pressure washer, it's manual.
but it's gonna be bigger for the trucks
The
and
concrete,
construction equipment.
yes, and the concrete's gonna be a 6-inch thickness for our heavy equipment to be able to go in there.
I don't know, we have an expert back there in the back of the room, but I don't know. Seems to me like $500,000, or what's the final bid?
$542,000.
Yeah, over $500,000 for two walls, a roof, and I don't know, it seems to me like a bit excessive, but
Well, for comparison, when we did our salt and sand storage over at the west side where we added on to the old Fire Station 3, and we put up the concrete walls, no plumbing, no electric, bare bones, walls and a roof on that so that we could use that for salt and sand storage, that came out to $218,000. Without the digging of the pit, without the electric, without the plumbing, without the mechanical car wash components. It was $218 for that with none of the things that a car wash would require.
aside from that, I say it now rather than call you about it. I don't know how many people have noticed the difference in the patching of holes and things on the streets.
Yes?
How it used to be in the past, sometimes the patch was worse than the hole. But what you guys are doing now is just seems to be like it's just smooth and continuous. So I think you're doing a great job there.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Is there any other questions I can help with?
I don't, go ahead, Larry.
Yourself.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Well, anyway, I've always been of the opinion that, anything's cheaper to build today than it is tomorrow. I think what we're seeing is the result of that philosophy. The concerns that I have is, just like you stated, was that if we keep kicking the can, we're going to wind up having to pass a bond issue just to get a car wash built. I mean, the route this is going, I think this is just simply a sign of the times. Everybody's feeling the squeeze of inflation. I don't see this thing getting any cheaper anytime soon. And I sure don't think we have 7 years to try to see if we can get the price down. By cost comparison that you did with Bentonville, I think that was shows good contrast. And like you said, I think that's just it's obvious that that's just kind of the going rate, and it is what it is. I'd certainly be in favor of, adjusting the budget, to get this thing done. I think it's imperative, because I think the process that you explained to me was that in order to wash inside, you have to evacuate everything out of the garage.
Correct.
And get everything prepared to get wet.
Yes.
And that is.
And their walls are plywood lined.
And so you're taking up the time of people.
Yes.
And that in and of itself is time that it costs taxpayers, inevitably.
Correct. We'd probably have to sweep after every single vehicle that got washed just due to the limitation of the floor grates. They weren't designed for what we'll be using it for temporarily.
Okay. I don't have a problem with.
Can I ask you about the permit? Because it's because of the permit that we're having to do this.
This was always on the plan, but the permit has definitely pushed up the priority on it. Yes,
Well,
sir.
my point is, was there something that DEQ suggested that would mitigate, that could get us, be able to allow us to continue without having to build a new wash bay? That
Well,
would be less expensive.
They suggested we dig a pit and add walls and a ceiling to keep the waters from commingling. There.
So this is what they said. It wasn't.
Yes, I do have some written documentation from ADEQ, and the recommendation was essentially to build a wash bay on the side of our vehicle where we were originally using the pressure washer when we had it in our budget to actually build that facility.
Larry, did you have something?
I do. I guess my observation is that what we have is a situation in northwest Arkansas where there's more construction work to be done than there are available contractors to do it on a competitive basis. And so what you see is elevated construction costs far and above what the real cost probably is. And we're stuck in that because of all of the construction that's occurring in northwest Arkansas. It's not uncommon. You will see it at various times in various metropolitan areas, but we're stuck in that cycle at this time. And so we either bite the bullet and move ahead with the project, which to me seems almost imperative on the basis of the ADEQ mandate to us to take care of our wash water from vehicles. And it's not conducive to us to continue washing as we have been inside the building was not constructed nor designed to accommodate that type of use, and is creating a premature failure there if we continue to do it for any length of time. And so I think we're just, it's a tough bullet to bite, but I would encourage the council people to think clearly about this and carefully about it, but I for one would support moving ahead with the project, because I think we have no other choice. And if we wait another year, it is likely, it's likely, not necessarily will be, but it's likely the cost will go up because of additional construction projects demanding contractors, and hence not available contractors to provide a competitive price, a real competitive price. So,
Thank you for
Thank you.
your comments.
I just want to mention a couple of things. We sent it out to bid to 11 people, and 3 people bid, which is pretty good participation. We considered going out for a rebid. And our prior street superintendent, Mike Button, said, don't ever do that. It always comes back higher. I called the Bentonville mayor, talked to her about her bid and about the concept of rebidding, and she said, I only tried that once and it came back worse. It was on a big road project. So we kind of thought that, and then Karen went back and checked with the, the architect or engineer designer on it, and, we looked at it everywhere we could think of and had trouble finding a way out. So I do think everybody is really busy, so when they're bidding on something, they think I'm already smoking busy, so it's pretty much what Larry describes as accurate, so.
well, we talked about, I talked with Ms. Hunt about possibilities of delaying the bid to another time when maybe other projects were not out there to draw on that group of contractors that would be interested in this. And the reality is that there isn't another project out there, or aren't enough projects out there to make it worthwhile to delay the bidding or change the bidding.
And in construction, usually the winter season is the slower season.
It's a little bit lower, it's a little more costly because there's more protections that have to be done for poured concrete and other things. So that's a slight part of the cost, but it's not a huge part of the cost. So, because they can pick good days to pour concrete too, where they have a week of nice weather.
So thank you, Karen, for your explanation. We'll take this up next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second item is the 2022 audit, and there's a presentation by David Coleman, who's an audit partner with Forbes, and by Kim Hall, who's with City of Bella Vista.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a second and tell you that this year we changed auditors and we changed to Forbes. Forbes has an excellent reputation for doing a detailed, in-depth audit. And we wanted to, I'm going to say up our game. And so we made this decision. And David Coleman is the partner with Forbes, and he's going to present the audit to you and answer any questions you have. Also, there's audit copies of the presentation in the back if anybody wants anything. Wants a copy.
All right, good afternoon. I do have a brief presentation, so we'll just start with page 3. So page 3 is the objectives of our audit. So you as a government, you receive several different opinions. One is a financial statement opinion, one is for your uniform guidance, and one is for internal controls. Another one is for your compliance with state law. So we did review your financial statements and also your federal awards. We did not find any issues point out to you. So, page 4, it talks about our responsibility versus management's responsibility. So, as auditors, we do review your financial statements, we do audit procedures, but management is totally responsible for those financial statements. As I mentioned, our audit reports, we did issue clean, unmodified opinions. One kind of odd thing, your financial statements are presented in regulatory basis. So that is not a GAAP basis of accounting. So the state of Arkansas allows for this reg basis of accounting. We did audit that, but we have issued an adverse opinion that those financial statements are not in compliance with GAAP, US GAAP. We did issue an unmodified opinion that they are in compliance with reg basis of accounting. So does everybody understand that? So I just want to make sure you understand that. Adverse opinion with GAAP, but unmodified when it comes to your financial statements in accordance with the regulatory basis. I know that's a lot of words. So.
Can I just add, they've been like this since we
Yeah.
started getting it.
Yeah.
And many cities. There's only like 10 cities in Arkansas that actually do a GAAP financial statement. So this is not a change. This is how it's always been with the city of Bella Vista since we've been getting audits.
Yeah, smaller municipalities in the state of Arkansas use the reg basis. So, like Kim said, some larger cities that require advanced bonding require GAAP financial statements, and GAAP financial statements are issued for those entities. But our opinions are clean. There's no issues associated with them. So, as far as we looked at the compliance with state acts, we looked at certain rules around your police, your courts, how things are doing. We're required to do that by the state of Arkansas. We didn't find any issues with that. And then again, your two major programs. So you got some COVID money that you were still spending used for public safety, some highway planning and cluster money used for some street repairs. So we are required to audit those. We did not find any issues with those. There are certain rules when you receive federal money that we're required to audit, and we didn't find any issues with those. So page 7, we want to add some general fund highlights. You know, you've got a lot to be proud of as far as your performance in the general fund. So at the end of 22, your unassigned fund balance in the general fund was $17.7 million. That represents about 95% of next year's or this year's budgeted operating expenses. So that's a very healthy fund balance. You know, your current year change in unassigned was adding $6.5 million to your unassigned fund balance. Page 8 is a schedule that I like to point out. It talks about it shows your budget versus your actual in your general fund. As you can see, most of your revenues at the top there were positive. Your sales tax went up almost $2.3 million last year. So significant increase there, and all with coming in below budget on your expenses. So overall, a very good year ending December 31, 2022. Again, I already talked about your major federal programs. We did audit those in compliance with uniform guidance and don't have any issues to report to you. So with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Larry?
I guess a couple of questions, sir.
Okay.
They go back to the gap thing. You said that there are 10 cities in Arkansas that use the gap methodology for accounting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that's accepted by the state.
Yeah, so GAAP is the government, is generally accepted accounting procedure. So that is overall rules that everyone in the nation follows. The state of Arkansas has a reg basis that is used by smaller entities in Arkansas. That's an acceptable way of accounting for things. It's just not GAAP.
So the 10 cities that you're referencing are larger cities in Arkansas?
Bentonville, Springdale, Fayetteville, Hot Springs, Little Rock, yes.
And so do you do accounting work in other states around Arkansas?
Yes.
And is it general practice in those states to use the GAAP accounting standard, or do they have state standards that are
You know,
different?
all states are a little bit different. Some states don't have the reg basis. You know, in Arkansas, we have the Arkansas Division of Legislative Audit, where a city can, if they do certain audits for smaller entities that don't have to go out and get an auditor. And I think the regulatory basis makes it a little bit easier for the smaller entities.
Okay. The other.
There's nothing wrong, it's just.
No,
the way
I appreciate that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
The other question I have is you point out that we have 17.7 million in the general fund. The reality is, though, that it's not 17.7 million that's available to spend, because there are other commitments tied to that 17.7 million in one form or another. Is that correct?
We are going to get to that.
Okay.
In my presentations here in a few minutes. If you remember, what we do right after this is, after we get this number from them, then we're going to go through and look at that and determine capital expenses for next year. Okay, so with that amount that's available, we take that and we start looking how much we can spend for
Gotcha.
the next capital. And we are going to use almost all of it next year. We have big projects. We have big projects looking. And Karen just took 300,000 of it.
Do you have a copy of the audit report in the packet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look at page 4.
In the audit report?
Yes, sir.
Page numbers, are they on there?
Page 4, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, as you can see, this is the statement of assets, liabilities, and fund balances for the general fund. At year end, 17.6 million was unassigned fund balance in the general fund.
And just as a reminder, the assigned funds are, most of that is our donations. The city council decided that we would call those assigned funds. We did that last year. And then the restricted funds are mostly about 95% of that is going to be our impact fees.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you for the report. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
In the past, we've just looked at the audit and not had the auditors come in, and they offered to come in, so I thought it would be nice for council to be able to hear from them directly.
I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to express that, you know, it really meant a lot to have an organization like Orbis, still calling them BKD in my head, come in and do this for us. That, you know, is really appreciated. So we want to take up the next one now?
Yeah, the next item is the 2024 budget draft by Finance Director Kim Hall.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the, you have a presentation in your packet for the budget. So the first thing I want to point out is on page 2, we're looking at basically revenues next year of $21.6 million. We'll go over the details of that here in a minute. But in general, I believe that we won't see that number change. That's a pretty good number, and I'm going to discuss it with you in just a minute. But that's probably 95%. We won't see it move more than $100,000 one way or another at this point, is my expectation. The operating expenditures are at this moment, are at 21.2 million. That can go up or down, you know, as you guys probably remember, we have to get to 0. So we've got our work cut out for us on that. Okay? And then the street fund, it is what it is. It's just, you know, we include that. You're going to see some of those expenses, and we'll talk about how that works. So I did want to talk about some of the revenue highlights. This year, as last year and several years prior to that, our biggest source of revenue is sales tax. Okay, where's Steve Burke? We've had 2 years now of us exceeding our budget dramatically. And so I'm going to, in this year, I'm going to say I'm taking the current year annualized. So I took year-to-date numbers for our sales tax. I annualized them. And then I said, that's going to be our number for next year. Okay? So this is a difficult time because I swear every year in October, the world starts pumping out about how next year we're going into a recession. So the week I was preparing this, I got 5 articles in my newsfeed talking about expect a stock market crash, expect a decline in the economy, a recession. It was interesting. But in Northwest Arkansas, we seem to be a little bit in a bubble, protected from a lot of that because we're growing so fast here, right? So I reached out to Benton County, and they are again estimating a 7 to 7.5% increase. Wow. That's what they're doing. So here's my thinking, is that I said, okay, if I annualize what we got this year, and then I take the county, and the county exceeds last year, then I've got about $500,000, so that if we get hit with some decrease in sales tax or some decline or recession, then we would have a little bit of cushion. So this is where I'm standing right now, looking at this based on what I've read. I feel like this is a conservative yet, as I told the mayor, it's conservative yet it's bold, right? I'm going to say that we're going to meet sales tax that we get this year, next year. So as long as we get some sort of increase, then that's what this budget is used as the basis of revenue.
And when you do that, where do you stand relative to an increase at the end of the year? Because you mentioned that Benton County is looking at 7.5%.
We would just exceed our budget.
But what percentage increase is that?
Well, that would be a big increase. If we look at...
Are we more than 7.5% then from this year, if you do that?
I'm looking at over the budget from last year. If you look at the budget from last year to this, for 24, I'm predicting approximately a 15% increase.
In revenue?
In sales tax revenue.
But the bottom line in revenue, is the Benton County one, the sales tax at 7.5%, or is that their bottom line?
Well, the county, if you look on page 5, you'll see the county sales tax number there at 9.3. So they're predicting that it will be above 9.3.
Okay.
Okay.
And we're at 15.
And I'm at 15 total between the two, sales tax, between county and city.
But you're looking only at sales tax, not total revenue.
Correct.
And my question is total revenue for the county?
Total revenue for the city, I'm predicting a 9.1% increase.
And is that the comparable to the 7.5 by the county? Or are they only talking sales tax revenue?
They're only talking sales tax. I'm sorry, I understand your question now.
Okay.
That 7.5% that they're predicting is the county
Sales
sales
tax.
tax only.
Yeah.
Right. Good question. Okay, so property taxes is the second largest, and it's 14% of our total revenues. And I'm basically, we're probably gonna miss our current year property tax by $30,000 or $40,000, somewhere in there. So I'm predicting a little bit less than Benton County is predicting, okay? Because we're a little ahead of them. So they give me an estimate and then I adjust that estimate, right? So I think that's we should be a little closer next year, but I think that's a good one. Just as a kind of an aside, one of the things I try to, I try to make sure people understand is the city of Bella Vista is growing, but we only get about 400 homes per year, 400 new homes. We issue 600 permits, but it takes up to 3 years for those to hit the tax rolls.
Yeah.
Okay? And just know that on average, well, I'd even go further and say that I don't think not many property tax revenue, we don't get more than $2,000 of property tax revenue on any of those homes. They almost all come in at under $2,000 a year. So we don't run the city on property tax. So that's why sales tax is such a crucial number for me, right? Is because we can't run the city on property tax and we depend on that sales tax. Does that make sense? So we need to keep in mind that when we're doing this, that we get about 400 new homes, even though there's 600 permits. Okay? On page 4, then of course we have county and state turnback fees. And Benton County and the state calculate those. We're not expecting a significant increase. There's a slight increase on the street fund state turnback fee. It's just a slight increase. So now what's interesting is going to be franchise fees, because as you guys know, people are cutting the cord for cable and telephones are gone and all of that sort of thing, landlines. So we've seen a lot of our franchise fees, exactly, Larry, go down. And the one that's going up is the electric and sewer, a little bit sewer, POA for water. So those are making up, at this moment, they still make up for the loss. But that's what I've done here is we'll see a slight decrease in franchise fees. So on page 5, I've kind of detailed out those changes. If you take a second and look at that, does anything jump out of interest that you guys want to discuss on page 5? This is, I gave you the highlights, and this is where I'm putting numbers to those highlights. Okay, so we'll look at page 6 is just the street fund turnback fees. Those are determined by the county and determined by the state, so that is what it is. As far as expenditures, this will be our first year with the public safety complex full on. So we're going to have some increases based on that, and then there's request for additional staffing and related equipment. That's new for 24. Also, as you guys remember, we just had that discussion about benefits. So we're going to see a significant increase there. Right now, since this budget was done on Thursday, we have a small decrease in benefits based on some things we're doing. So we hope that works well. And then, of course, their salary and wages are increasing. Just want to remind you guys that there is some impact to these budgets because we did the reorganization and moved people to street, from CDS to fire and police. I don't really want to go through these expenditure pages right now because, as I've already mentioned, we have to go back and we have to make about $1 million worth of adjustments to get in line. So if you have any questions or anything like that, reach out to me on that.
What do you mean $1 million in adjustments to get in line?
Because we have to, our expenditures cannot exceed our revenue
Okay,
on the budget.
right.
That's why when the auditors were commenting about how, we've done really well that way.
So you mean you're holding expenses?
So on page, I'll give you the exact page to look at here. Go back to page 2.
I don't have that audit with me. I left mine at
Oh,
home.
here, I'll just
It's
give
in
you
your
mine.
packet.
Page 2.
Yeah, I left this.
Page 2, we show that right now on that, we show that it's about $900,000 revenues, expenditures exceed revenues by about $900,000. And that's not a final number. There's some additional adjustments coming. That's why I don't think it's a good use of your time to go through that at this moment.
Yeah, this is a preliminary budget, Jerry, and what she means is we're planning to cut some of the things that are listed as expenditures.
Also, they haven't been incurred yet. This is part of the budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just a
that's for
plan
next
for
year.
next year.
Okay.
We're planning to adjust our plan so that it's less expenditures.
Could I suggest to you that you use the thing in Word that says draft across the page or something in the corner or down as a
Oh,
footer?
absolutely. If you'd like me to, I can start putting that on every page. I put it at the front.
Only because this is early and
Yeah.
it's easy, once you get the pages done and you get them separated, you might know.
You know what, I thought about that, and
This is a suggestion.
I will do the watermark that says draft on it.
Or something, if you would, please.
Sure,
It keeps us from
from thinking it's
going down
fine.
the wrong lane.
I understand. Any other questions about?
Well, while we're on the subject, I just want to mention, we'd have a revised budget for the work session next month, and then we're going to schedule, as usual, a special meeting to go over the budget, or is it a special work session? Anyway, we had a tentative date of December 4, but we want to check with y'all and see what'll work. But you might want to check your schedule and see how December 4 looks. I think that's a Monday. isn't
It is Monday.
Yeah.
Should be the first Monday in December, that's the plan right at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the next topic is,
Do capital expenditures?
2024 fund balance and capital expenditure.
Again, this is a discussion draft, and so as David mentioned at the top, you see where we have, per our audit, we have the 17.69. That's our available funds to spend, all right? And then our revenue, the current policy for the city is to make a reserve requirement of 25% of projected revenue. So I pull that off the top, so it goes to 5.4 million. And so the available funds to spend is $12.2 million. Okay. So on here, you're going to see that we carry over certain expenses that were not completed in the current year and are not expected to be completed. The 261 will go up by $390,000. You guys just talked about that. So that'll go up. Do you want my copy? No. Oh, okay.
And that's the street car wash
Yes,
project?
the car wash project. If you guys approve that next week, we'll raise that. So that's why the only reason I'm pointing this out is because I want you to understand how this is in flux. Okay? On each of the pages after that, on page 2 and the following pages, you're going to see the current request per department. So we need to, our directors are going to go back and look this over. This is their first pass, and they'll look this over to determine if they need to make any adjustments. One thing I want to mention to you that is different, and I don't know if it'll stay here or not, but what I wanted to mention to you is the debt service on the fire truck is on our capital expenditures this year. I don't know if it'll be here or in operating when we're done. I've got to do some research on that. But it is, and you'll have a schedule. You'll have a schedule in here. The last tab, the last page is the debt service. Okay? So the bottom line here is, and I mean literally the bottom line on page 1. The bottom line is important because what it shows is, at this particular time, we have $18 million of planned capital expenditures in the next 5 years that are unfunded. So what that means is we're going to have to start looking at financing some of these expenditures. So at the beginning of next year, I would imagine in January or February, we're probably going to determine what the cost would be to start financing some of these expenses. Any questions about that?
Are the interest rates going down?
Not yet. We were really lucky with the interest rate we got on that fire truck. And they were betting that interest rates are going to go down. That was their bet. That's why we got such a good rate. And we ended up being able, we're gonna make money on that deal. So fingers crossed, but they have not gone down yet. Anything else?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I think that's a good start.
Thank you, thank you.
The next one is Monarch Garden Ordinance Amendment. Planning Manager Taylor Robertson. Hopefully this is more cheerful than the budget.
Butterflies and flowers, I think that's pretty positive. But yeah, I just wanted to update you guys. I've been asked a couple times on where we are with the Monarch adjustment, or the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, basically, that we pledged to do this year. I came to you guys a couple months ago, kind of just had a discussion with you and see if there was any interest, and there was some interest. And so since then, I've been going around and meeting with other groups. I've met with the Architectural Control Committee. I've met with the Bella Vista Garden Club and some of their master naturalists and master gardeners. 2 different achievements, but I've met with the people who I, would deem as the professionals and the native species. And I've put together something that you guys all have up there with you physically, physical prints. And in red, this is the current draft that I've got together. I'm preparing to bring something next month in November. This was also based heavily off of the National Wildlife Federation's policy recommendations. And that is basically to exempt approved plans or landscaped areas from that 10-inch cut requirement. So basically looking at proposing to codify an exemption that would exempt people from having to cut any vegetation that's in excess of 10 inches in height if it is one, within a landscaped area arranged and managed consistent with a plan approved by the mayor or his or her designee, which the area will include native vegetation or vegetation that supports local pollinators, where of course weed control and other periodic maintenance occurs. 2, with or adjacent to streams, waterways, floodways, floodplains, or water quality facilities. And then 3, within a preservation zone, maintained open space or undeveloped tracts of land. Went ahead and put that in there again with the recommendation, National Wildlife Federation. And then you also have another page that says pollinator garden requirements. I kind of wanted to put together an example of what an approved plan would require from at least CDS staff if the mayor chose us to be his designee to oversee this new change. But essentially, there you go. Item number 1, vegetation in excess of 10 feet or 10 inches shall be allowed so long as they comply with the following things. And these are kind of the comments that I collected from the last city council meeting where we discussed this from ACC and then of course BV Garden Club, which most of theirs was item number 2. They had a lot to say on what native species they want to see for our pollinators. So the total area, you guys wanted a maximum, or at least that was one of the comments I received, on a landscaped area for our pollinator plants. And so went with a maximum of 120 square feet because it's kind of just this, like the planning practice standard of oversight where that starts being triggered. And then of course, ACC wanted a well-defined and contained area with a border. So that's the second item on there. And then of course, everyone mentioned this, that I've talked to keep the garden well-maintained, be free of the tall grass that will pop up between the flowers, and through in their invasive species, because of course we don't want to promote invasive species in Bella Vista. And then the garden shall consist of native pollinator supporting vegetation, which is mentioned in item 2. And then the garden shall not be within a site triangle north in the city's right-of-way. That's kind of just a safety concern, general planning practice. You don't want anything between 2.5 feet to 4 feet within your site triangles. Item number 2, those were 10 species, or our top 10 from our local Bella Vista Garden Club. Those are the native species that the monarchs and local butterflies and other pollinators thrive on. And then wanted to go ahead and include some prohibited or invasive species that we do not want to see in these landscape areas. These are more of like the dangerous, really, really fast growing, take over real quick, hurt our native species. Basically wanted to just make sure, we don't want to see those in there. So this is just an update, and if you have any more comments, please send them my way, so I would love to incorporate those for the first official proposal next month.
So does this mean that a permit will be required for a pollinator garden?
No, I did not propose a permit, just an approved plan from a designee, which is the second page. Didn't want to include a permit for this, but if you guys want a permit, I can rearrange that.
So I just planted a large quantity of kudzu. Does that mean I have to dig it up?
Of what? I'm hearing in the back. What did you just plant?
He said he just planted a large quantity of kudzu.
Oh, you do?
And several council people answered yes to the does he have to dig it up question.
At least it wasn't the Coven grass or the blood grass, because that's illegal, I guess. I've heard it, I'm not sure.
Are the invasive species that are on here are not trees, but they're shrubs or plants?
These are plants. These are actually the invasive weed species that the Arkansas, the Department of Environmental Quality has posted on there that please don't plant these.
These are plant species rather than shrubs and trees?
Yes, these are specific weed species.
Kudzu is actually ground cover.
Suitable ground cover, unsuitable ground cover.
Yeah.
there are ideal areas in this, in the city that you might see a predominance of kudzu.
It's very interesting. But it is very fast growing.
Very
It's very
interesting,
quick.
drive down Huntley.
I read that it takes over very fast.
It does. And it's been there a long time.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Something that's not clear to me about this.
Sure.
The 10 by 12, as you said, 120 square feet, so that's 10 by 12. So if somebody has a yard, let's say it's 3/4 of an acre, they can only have 120 acres, 120 square feet of pollinator garden, is that what we're saying?
That's what's
Is that
being,
per yard?
yeah, that's what's being proposed. I think the initial proposal that I received, the comment was 50 square feet, so I went above that with this
That
proposal.
just doesn't seem very enlightened in today's world. You know, that we're limiting it to, like, 120 square feet, and it seems like maybe some percentage of yards maybe, but, 10 by 12, that's like from the lectern to the front, and, I mean, that's not a lot of.
Right now, they're not allowed at all.
I understand, but, I mean, we don't want to have to come back and redo this. What I'm trying to say is, so could we add or some percentage of yard?
Which she brought up a good point too. I did want to note, what I'm proposing here is to only codify that the plan is approved by the mayor's designee, so that way if we had changes like that, we could deal with them administratively with the approved plan per the mayor. Only codifying that the plan be approved by the mayor, and then of course, we'll be able to administratively alter the requirements. For instances like that.
Well, you have
If
several.
we're gonna have a minimum, if we're gonna set a space requirement, and I think that's something that needs to be legislatively done. I mean, because the mayor could change his mind, or different mayors could come in and change their mind, the mayor could say, I don't want any of it, it's 0. And then another mayor could say it could be 300 square feet. So we need it, if we're gonna do that, we've got to have a process by which that decision is made, or we need to put it.
Yeah.
We need to think about that, not that we need to determine that now.
For sure. And that's kind of what I just had here, like a form approved basically by the mayor or his or her designee. So that way, it could form like a policy, but instead of a codification process. And also that was the policy recommendation from the National Wildlife, that they used Austin, Texas as a recommendation, but we can definitely change that around as a codification requirement.
Thanks for your input. I had one question. Is this consistent with the ACC, or don't they care about this kind of thing? Or
No, they just said they want it tall, like they don't want the tall grass in there, they want it maintained, and they want a border, and they do want a size max. Those were the comments I received from them, which is pretty similar to what I received at the work session when we talked about it.
Do they mention their size max?
No, no general, like I mentioned the 50 because that was what was given here at work session, but I said I was thinking about going a little bit bigger because a 5 by 10 really isn't that big for a garden. But yeah, the size really wasn't like an issue. They just seemed more like as long as the side, so it's not the entire front yard or the entire backyard or whatever it be.
Or 5 by 24 or 2.5 by 48.
Whatever it be. 120.
So you could use it as a planting strip along your drive or in front of your house or whatever, however you wanted to see it used. I'm assuming from the language here that it could be front yard or backyard.
Yeah, just not in the right of way or in a side yard.
Not on the right of way, not in common property, and probably not on the easement around the property.
Well, this is proposing those preservation zones or those P1 open spaces to not be limited to the 10-inch in height. This is exempting those preservation zones from the 10-inch height requirement.
Well, I'd be inclined to entertain a percentage ratio, something like that. Just with the variation in lot sizes. I mean, even if we stay up with the base,
We could,
whatever, anything that lends itself to grow with the property, especially if this is going to regulate, or I don't want to say regulate, but But this restricts how much they can have even in their backyard?
Why would it be visible? I mean, that, you know, that what's visible.
So, but that's what I mean, is that that's, once you start getting into what's behind or enclosed and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, that, I mean, right now, anything in city limits, if it's over 10 inches, it needs to be cut, whether it's in the backyard or the front yard,
Yeah.
per the code.
The height is across the whole lot. The height, the 10-inch height is across the whole lot. It
Yes,
doesn't.
right now, it's everywhere. Just,
It's
you know,
everywhere.
Property owners must keep vegetation below 10 inches in height regardless of the beauty or if it supports wildlife, animal habitats, things like that, I believe is what's in the definition.
It seems like having a proportion, is that if you have a larger lot, you could have a larger pollinator garden would make some sense, would be reasonable and practical, I guess, appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, the size of the garden diminishes the size of the lot, you know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
came up with something proportionate to the size of the lot, yes, it would grow, but it would grow in respect to the size of the property.
We could do too, we've got some other codes that say, you know, either 18 feet or 5% of the lot, whichever is less, whichever is greater, so we could do that too in instances like this.
So it just gives
Or a simple,
flexibility.
yeah, or a simple table that goes through various lot sizes. From this to this, you get this much. From this to this, you get that much. Something that would allow them to step it up. And
One thing I would remind you, and I think you've already touched on a little bit, we start talking about these things which touch on aesthetics. In property that's under the POA and ACC regulations privately, they may say 0, and we will have authorized all this and led people to believe they could do it, and then there would be private enforcement against them. So it sounds like there's a willingness for them, but it's just important for people to understand we may say something's okay, but privately they have regulations which would not permit it.
And relative to that, we would need to probably go back and review with them and say, how do you feel about making it adjustable based on lot size? That this would be a base or this would be a parameter.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would.
So that we wouldn't move forward and do something that is not going to be suitable citywide. City says it's okay, but the AC says it's not, you know.
Yeah. The less stop signs, the better. But yeah, I would definitely run a final draft before then to make sure there's no stop signs.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Okay, we're going to start on our regular agenda now. I apologize for some of you who may have had to wait for a while. The first item is Ordinance A, amending Bella Vista zoning ordinance to rezone property from R1 residential single-family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. And I believe this is in the Tanyard Creek area near the driving range.
This was, I don't know if you recall this, but this was one that the Planning Commission did not vote to recommend to you, and the POA filed an appeal of that decision to you. And so this is still a zoning decision, it's still the same criteria and that you used to review it, but it's come to you a little different way. It's come to you without any Planning Commission recommendation.
Thank you for that. I want to point out there is a letter from Doug McCash, putting forth the POA's viewpoint. And I couldn't recall from the Planning Commission, I was wondering if the planning or the CDS, our own CDS department, was in favor of this or not.
It was recommended by staff, I believe.
Yeah, staff recommended approval. There is C1 right next to it, so it would be, aligned with the surrounding zone. However, staff did want to know, one of the comments that was made in the Planning Commission stage was that they would prefer this be like a buffer area. If that was something that City Council would want to move forward, if they weren't comfortable with C1, RO is our transition buffer for RO to C. So that could be an option if R1 is still not comfortable. But however, staff did recommend approval of the C1 with that C1 zone right there, since it is a part of that area, just an extension of that neighborhood service And then also, you know, anytime we have commercial that abuts residential, there are screening requirements that are triggered. So I know that's typically a concern, but we have screening and buffering whenever they're adjacent like that.
So, first of all, by changing the zoning, if we were to approve that as a council, any development on that would be a planned commercial development site plan that would go before the planning commission, and you would review it for things like the screening capability or the screening responsibility that's in the code because it's adjacent to R1.
Correct. Anything that is not a single-family home or duplex would require a site plan review from planning.
Yeah, so,
I also wanted to note too, just because again, the transition or buffer zone that was being discussed, commercial recreation, which is what our golf courses are, most of what the POA has on their land is not allowed in RO. Our commercial recreation starts being allowed in C1. So that was something else for its consideration as well.
Why did the planning commission turn it down?
I am not sure how the recommendation failed. It was a recommendation of approval that failed, so I'm not sure.
A couple citizens were at the meeting and they were concerned
Spoke
about
against it.
having commercial right behind their property. And they expressed that.
yes.
I infer that had something to do with what the planning commission did.
Right.
I don't have.
It's speculation on my part. It's just a,
It just didn't pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right.
Particularly,
Yeah, I think in the minutes it said that they didn't see hardship for it.
they have to show hardship.
Yeah.
That may not what it said, but they don't have to show.
Yeah.
Mr. Judson, did you want to add anything to it, or?
This is one of our efforts to clean up all the zoning. Fortunately, I can say this is the last one we're going to try. We've gone through all the other ones, all 22. Earlier this year, the lot that the POA owns, which is immediately adjacent to the one in question, was approved by the Planning Commission and City Council and was rezoned. So we feel that this is consistent with that. They're part and parcel, are right next to each other. So we request that you reconsider this for us. Any questions?
Well, I'd like to make it clear you're welcome to come to our meetings even when you no longer have things in front of us.
Even the longer ones. Thank you.
I just don't understand why we've passed so many others. Why this particular one? I mean, what about it caused the planning commission to reject it?
I can't speak for the Planning Commission.
No one heard a reason? I mean, other than just it didn't pass?
The one reason that I heard was that they wanted a buffer, some sort of separation between the homes and C1. And so when I contacted the city, they said that there's inherently a setback, which is essentially a buffer. So you'd have to speak to them. I can't speak to them. But appreciate your consideration on this appeal.
Jerry, there are minutes of planning commission meetings, and it could be that we could get a copy of that, and that would be all we had, would be their minutes. Said something.
Not that it makes any, I know that it's a big deal.
Oh, that's a legitimate question.
Well, there was a public hearing that was held by the Planning Commission before they acted upon this, and so anyone who got up and spoke at the meeting would be in those minutes, so it might help us to have at least a copy of that part of the minutes from that meeting.
I will put the minutes in for the regular meeting, September 11th. So those meeting minutes were just approved at our previous meeting. So we do have those prepared and ready.
Good, thank you. Okay, the next issue is Resolution B, adopting a comprehensive safety action plan and Vision Zero policy.
Okay, Vision Zero is back on the agenda. We've had a public hearing through Planning Commission, actually just recently, last week. We didn't have anyone come speak at the public hearing. However, we did have one public comment, which is included in your guys' packet right after staff's memos. It is in support of Vision Zero. But essentially, Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission has put together this comprehensive safety action plan known as Vision Zero, with the main focus in mind to have 0 deaths and 0 serious injuries in this area by 2038. I think we had about a 44 average over a 5-year period of people either dying or having serious injuries. And of course, as we've all heard in the public hearing and from staff that, even one is too many. There is a lot of data in this packet and in this plan for you guys in the appendixes, all supporting the reason and the need to have, our forward focus on 0 deaths and 0 serious injuries, especially in Bella Vista and of course Northwest Arkansas. Page 35 of that plan has the goals and suggested actions for us to take. Again, this is just a guide, something to keep in the back of our mind when making decisions and plans. And then I would defer to our trails coordinator, active transportation coordinator, Justin Culpepper, for further discussion on this safety action plan.
What she said. So the issue we're addressing, as she said, is killed and seriously injured roadway users in Northwest Arkansas. If the number of calls I get every week is any indication, this is a hot topic. I get at least 2 or 3 a week about bikes in the roadways or pedestrians in the roadways or what's this motorcycle doing? So if the plan, the regional planning actually indicated in here that we're not doing real well with our current codes and ordinances in relation to those things. So this will help give us some guidelines for changing those codes and those ordinances going forward. It's a great reference material for making those decisions. A few, like Taylor said, there's a lot of data in here, but a few of the nuggets that I think are most pertinent is that from 2017 to 2021, Northwest Arkansas had about 1,200 people be seriously injured on our roadways. They define seriously injured as basically not being able to function in the way you previously functioned prior to that accident. So it's a life-altering accident. In addition to those 1,200 people, we had 220 people who were killed on our streets from 2017 to 2021. That's an average of 44 people that die each year, and the trend is upward, unfortunately. Also in Northwest Arkansas, vulnerable roadway users, which are pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcycle riders, were involved in only 3% of wrecks, which sounds really great. Like, hey, that's 3% is really low, but they also accounted for 33% of our deaths. Mm-hmm. So they're disproportionately being hurt and killed on our roadways. And of course, we know we're seeing increased numbers of bikes and pedestrians every day in our region. So now is a great time to try to implement some changes and make our streets safer for everybody. So part of that will be this Vision Zero. Basically, it says we have 15 years is the goal. Some of our sister cities who've already adopted it have extended it a little bit further than that, even to the year 2040. As the goal to where we can get that number down to 0. Let's see here. It says Bella Vista. In Bella Vista, we're pretty low priority as far as our region goes. Bella Vista Way is the street that they've identified as being the biggest area where we can improve things here in Bella Vista. Small section of the bypass must be in city limits. That's included as well. But So Vision Zero, what is it? You know, this is from regional planning, but it actually started back in the mid-90s in Switzerland, I believe, and it's been implemented in cities throughout the world, really, and it's been very successful in a lot of those places. So I think with good collaboration here in Bella Vista, we can make it safer for everybody. And like Taylor said, they gave us some specific goals and actions. It's more than just crosswalks and stop signs, but it's more about shifting our approach towards safety, understanding that people make mistakes, understanding that, bad things will occasionally happen. People will make errors, so there's redundancy built into a lot of the things that they talk about. So that helps contribute to keeping all of us safe. Of course, they break things down: immediate term, short term, long term. Just some examples of immediate actions that we could take include publishing annual report on crashes. A big part of this is for our whole community to take accountability for the way we view crashes. Historically, even we've called them accidents, so it's a small word, but they suggest saying use crashes instead. Just so that's not an expensive change, but it's a change that we can start implementing to hopefully shift how we view things. Things like develop guidance for traffic calming. You know, this would require collaboration between CDS, the police, fire, the streets department. It would be a big city effort, but I do think it'd be worth it. So, yeah. Anybody have any questions on it?
I got a question. Does anybody in council or anyone notice a large number of people driving left to center? I mean, people,
That actually came up at Planning Commission as well. Yeah, it's happening, yeah, so.
Yeah, you meet somebody on the curve and they're about half over in your lane, which is because of speed. They can't, it's whether they're not familiar with the road or just driving too fast, which that seems to be another thing, is the number of people that seem to be in an excessive hurry. I mean, there are, especially on our streets.
I told Planning Commission, I got honked at pulling into my own driveway the other day by someone who just lives a few houses down. They honked at me pulling into my driveway, you know, just as an example. People are, and this tries to address a lot of that, the way that we view sharing roads with cars and the vulnerable user groups. But yeah.
I think Bella Vista is a very unique community of all of the Northwest Arkansas communities in our setting. We have a developer who came in and developed all of the land, essentially, or 95% of it or 90% of the land is developed. We're fixed. Our roadways are fixed, our right-of-ways are fixed, everything is fixed. We don't have an option of planning new development to accommodate some of the things that are in this proposal. I see it as being perhaps a yoke around our neck long-term, and I'm only speaking out loud what I'm thinking of my concerns for this, because if you go back to our 2040 plan that we just adopted a couple of years ago, the focus of that plan is really an emphasis upon our trails and biking and things like that around the city. It has many ideas and proposals in there of how we widen our streets to accommodate bike lanes or pedestrian lanes along the edge of our roadways. We don't have the opportunity of creating separated lanes for pedestrians or bicycle traffic except in rare areas because of our topography, where our hands are tied. And so I see this as being a real challenge for Bella Vista in the long term. And I guess I run up the flag and say, in 15 years, if we really are called to task about meeting some of the objectives that are suggested in this report that we're adopting, it could cost us a lot of money because of adding lanes on the outside of our existing streets. And you can take Chelsea as an example, or you can take any number, Houston, any number of streets, Trafalgar, Kingsland, all of those are arterials, but they have their handicaps in many areas that you don't have the ability to widen the pavement to accommodate the additional travelers that this study in this report emphasizes. So I'm not sure about what its impact will be to the city. I need to think about this a whole lot more and need to study it a whole lot more from my perspective about supporting it. I think the concept and the idea has some merit, but I don't know about getting to zero in 15 more years. I think that might be an unrealistic expectation. I don't know where we've been in the last 15 years, but I don't know that we've had that many fatalities on the streets from these types of things where it's been a pedestrian, a bicyclist, or a motorcyclist. Now, I know we've had some motorcycle deaths in the city, but I don't know that they've been within the city limits. They may have been in adjacent areas. So,
Have you gotten any kind of numbers yourself as to how many accidents in the city have involved vehicle and bicycle?
No, I don't have those stats. I can talk with the police and see if that's something we can get.
It seems to me this report is more geared toward the other cities in Northwest Arkansas, like a lot of other.
The vast majority of it definitely addresses other cities. There's primarily Bella Vista Way is highlighted as they really don't venture much off of 71 in the plan as far as Bella Vista goes, for the reasons that Mr. Williams.
It seems to me like a lot of reports and a lot of things that come from the regional planning seems to be geared toward other cities in Northwest Arkansas other than Bella Vista. It seems like we kind of left out or ignored to a great extent in a lot of issues.
Well, I think we're a lot closer to zero fatalities. In fact, we have years with zero. Yep. Fatalities, and we probably have a lot better shot at it than Fayetteville and Springdale and some of those places do. I do think it's going to get more challenging as we grow, for obvious reasons, but this is kind of a national emphasis also. It's not really just regional. And the way I see it, the concept of it is whenever you're doing anything with your roads, making a new crosswalk or whatever you're doing, and we will be doing things with our roads, that you think about this and think about what's a safe way to do it. And, you know, Larry, I agree with some of the things you said about the challenges, but I'm still, I have not given up on the concept of having paths along some of our roads that are separate from the roads. And I think that's very viable, and I think that will occur some places in Bella Vista. I've never been a big fan of just making the road a little wider and saying, oh, that's a bike lane now, as opposed to having a separate, some kind of division. A good example of it is the new Mercy Way Bridge, where the bike lane is clearly divided off from where the cars are. So that's a lot safer if you're able to do that. But yeah, we have our topography challenges for sure, and we are going to have more and more bikers and walkers and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge.
It will be challenging, you know, like you said, we're not building a ton of new streets, but just an example of an action that they suggest in here is consider adopting a roundabout first policy, which simply would mean if you're considering adding a light, say traffic at this intersection is increased, we're thinking about adding a light, our first step would be maybe a roundabout should be considered, and at least just look into it. You know, studies show that roundabouts are safer, slower speeds are safer, not just when it comes to pedestrians or bikes, but car versus car as well. So there are low-cost things that we can take from this plan, whether we take all of it and implement all of it over the next 15 years or not. There are certainly good nuggets in here that we can learn from and that we can
I guess relative to the roundabouts, the compromise is that you get rid of the signal, and so you make it an active intersection all the time. It doesn't preclude accidents from happening because people sometimes are unwilling to yield the right-of-way like they're supposed to.
Correct.
But the reality is that it requires a lot of land space to build those. And it's a function of the design speed of the roadways that you're mating together with the roundabout. And as a result of that, in Bella Vista, the problem is we may have the land, but it may not be conducive for the expansion of the roundabout.
And so it'd be a case-by-case thing, you know, every intersection, we could have that exact discussion. That's basically what this one aspect of the plan.
And I would suggest to you that from a transportation standpoint, that logically would be one of the considerations given to any intersection that we propose incorporating stop-and-go signals.
And like you said too, the accidents may still occur, roundabouts are tricky. I got turned around on one this weekend in Kansas, but you're at slower speeds, so statistically, the odds of a fatality are, the slower you are, the safer it is. So it's not going to necessarily eliminate all crashes, but hopefully it will eliminate ones that result in being killed or seriously injured.
But again, the feasibility of installing those as the option is the challenge in Bella Vista in most cases.
Correct.
And I can take you to any number of major street intersections where 3 sides are good, but the 4th side sucks. So it's a good concept, but the reality is for Bella Vista, it's a challenge. And so.
Okay, thank you, Justin. I appreciate your report. Okay, next one is C, is a resolution accepting the financial audit report presented by Forbes LLP for the year-end audit, and of course, we've heard from them, so that'll be on the agenda for next time. That leaves one item. Item D is a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a guaranteed maximum price contract amendment with Kleinert Construction Management, Inc. The amount of $2,659,813.41 for the renovation and remodeling of the former police station for use by Fire Station Number 1. And before Mr. Sims starts, I wanted to mention that $367,000 of that is the demo that we already approved, the demo and generator. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
That is correct. It includes the demo, and it also includes any amount that we paid up so far on architectural design and engineering. And that's around $300,000. So you can back all that off. The reason for this is currently right now we have demo going on that building. And we're hoping to have that done close to the end of the month. So my goal was to, once the demo was started, that we go ahead and start on construction on the 2-story phase of that project. And that's what this guaranteed maximum price is for, plus some lead time, equipment that we're going to need for the possibility of future expansion. So, which I'm going to go over here in just a few minutes. I'm going to kind of take you step by step, phase by phase, and show you each level, each everything we're looking at and what we're looking at putting in that space for this price. So, do you want to say anything?
So this includes the costs that we've already authorized as well?
Yes, some of the
Okay.
costs are Craig,
Don't worry about it. Sorry, you're okay.
the presentations here are mainly for the public, and since this is being televised, to be able to show them what we're looking at. These phases, and I've got all sheets there that I'm going to go by those phases. Those are different.
Do you have a good view there, Kevin?
Yeah, mainly this is for Kevin here, so he can, maybe point to some of these diagrams here, and also,
You might want to grab that microphone. Steve?
Okay, so if you turn to page number 1, it's a schematic design of the building. What you're looking at is you're looking at the east side of the building on the top, and you look at the front or the north side of the building on the bottom. And the GMP we're looking at for here, if you go to the top one on the east side, it's everything. If you look at the bell tower, that's to the north. If you look behind the bell tower, that's to the south. The guaranteed maximum price is to renovate the southern portion double story, or to start that renovation process. Of this phase, that's phase 1B. Phase 1A was demo, phase 1B is the renovation, started renovation project.
And that's the existing two-story building.
That's the existing two-story
Yeah.
building. If that's all that gets done, then we can actually move firemen in there as little as possible. Now, the next phase of the project, which that phase, if you look at page number 3, it's over to the right, page number 3, actually shows the renovation of the existing two-story project. That's the lower left. As you can see, bunkering and offices. And some bathrooms. That's where the fire personnel are going to sleep. That's going to be the bunk rooms there. There's 9 bunk rooms with the body sheets office and some bathrooms in that lower level. That's what you're seeing on the right-hand side. If you look at over to page number 4, go to that one. On page number 4, if you're looking at, not towards the north, but if you look towards the south, that is going to be upstairs, upper level of the two-story project. That's where the fire day, that's where the lounging, the kitchen, bathrooms, and some other areas in there for their use. So they were sleeping down below, because I wanted the firemen at the lower level, where they could get out to the trucks quicker. Additional new space, which, based off of some history on looking at some property around here, buying the property and renovating it, you're looking at about the same price per square foot. That be everybody be in one spot, If you look at that page number 1, or that one again, if you look at the west end of the building, where the current city offices are at, that is projected or proposed to be renovated for CDS and IT. So if you look at page number, and Greg, I hate your back behind me. Sorry about that. If you look at it on page number 3, you can see that layout as well on what space we're looking at renovating there. That would be 5,100 square foot of renovated space versus new space. The two-story renovation is a total of 6,800 square feet. So a two-story, 6,800 square feet. New addition for the city hall and fire admin is 6,600 square feet. And renovation of CDS is 5,100 square feet. And of course, we're going to be adding new engine bays. If you look at page number 1 again, the higher portion of the 2 bays, those are new existing bays, which consist of just under, just a little over 4,400 square feet. So new existing bays. The other 3 bays that are currently there, those bays will stay like they are. We're going to do some work inside of them, but they're not coming down. They're staying there. We're going to fix them up inside a little bit, but they'll stay as original. So we're going to have 3, actually 4 bays we can drive through and 1 bay that won't be able to drive through. So that's the future plan of I think is what Mayor Flynn was kind of looking at, of trying to get everybody down in one place on the city property. So, and as soon as we get through planning commission in November, hopefully we can start that process of being a total GMP, a total price that we can bring in front of council for the whole project and completion. Is there any questions?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, so the part we're voting on next week is fixing up the existing 2-story police station, so that's why it didn't have to go through the planning commission.
And just keep in mind, it includes stuff that's already been paid for, around $300,000, and it includes what's already been approved, almost $400,000 for the renovation, or the demolition, interior demolition.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
The developer architect, I know what Karen spoke about earlier, just the inflationary impact of construction in today's market. Does the developer, builder see any kind of inflationary something moving forward, or is the project total pretty much locked in what it's going to be, or are we looking at this kind of in parcels of construction?
So are you talking about what you'll be voting on next Monday night?
Yeah.
That's going to be, it won't be any more than that.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's going to be less than that. I mean, we'll do everything we can to make that less. And you got to remember, when we're looking at this project, we're looking at square footage based off of new construction, and we're looking at square footage based off of renovated construction. And it's all going to, you can put one price tag to it and come up with a higher number. But when realistically, it's all going to level out per phase of construction, I think.
Yeah, and I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I was just curious.
Right now,
it's not pertinent really to what we're talking about tonight, so that's fine.
right now, new construction's around $400 square foot. Roughly about right, somewhere between the upper 300s and 400.
I might address that just a little bit further, especially on this first 2-story renovation. This 2-story renovation is kind of the main building block for the whole complex. All of the electrical power, for example, will come out of that building. We're bringing, we have the fire sprinkler, the entire complex. We're bringing the main riser as well as the line that comes in from the street will come into the 2-story. And if you just look at this in terms of people are maybe a little more familiar with the cost of homes. There's 9 bunk rooms in this 2-story. It's essentially a home with 9 bedrooms and 4 fully functioning bathrooms with showers, plus some additional bathrooms upstairs. a full kitchen and dining area for up to 9 firefighters who will be living here full 24/7, 365 days out of the year. So we're building a pretty expensive component to start with, which, as the chief said, when we get into the additional phases, we have 4 phases planned right now. The utilities and the fire sprinkler system will extend out into those buildings, which kind of lowers the cost of that. And so, I thought that helps answer.
Yeah.
And some of the funding is in 23's budget, capital budget, so I'm hoping to use, that's why I'm hoping to get a couple of months, if this is passed, a couple of months of actual construction on a 2-story project. And then I've got, if the capital's passed in 24 budget, like $4.5 million to cover that first 24, and I paid 2.2 or 2.1 million to cover the rest of the project in 25.
Yeah, it's in that chart that Kim gave you.
That's right.
Yeah.
I got it.
And you've probably seen, and that's what Kim, I noticed Kim left. She probably, I didn't want to hear a word of that. No. But it's going to be, guys, it will be a pricey tag. But it's for what we're trying to do, I feel like it's great use of money. And like I said, it's getting everybody down in one spot. We have one place to go. We got new versus something we have to renovate, buy and renovate. It's just, and I think it's going to be a great project.
Yeah, and I'm not, and please on this, I'm not asking questions and
Oh, no,
I'm asking, just kind of thinking years down the road, you know, kind of with concern, not hesitation at all. I mean,
And that's kind of what she was talking about. We have some large projects coming up, but we also, they're saying we can also use debt services. So there is a possibility we could pay part cash and part finance. So that's the thing, that's one of the things the mayor and I and Kim have talked about, is maybe doing part of it this way and then maybe doing the syndicate financing. So that's all, it's all possible.
it's just a matter of prioritizing. So,
So, any projection as to how long this would be good for? I mean, as far as growth of the city?
So we did incorporate growth on all sides of City Hall, Fire Admin, and on CDS. We do have room for growth. I think it shows, if you look at those plans, it shows like on CDS, over on the side there's some future offices in there as well.
So will this cover us for the next 20 years or next 10? Any projection there?
I hope so.
It's a matter of opinion. I think it's 20 years. One thing we looked at earlier is we were going to have City Hall and CDS all where City Hall is now. And there was no room, the trouble with that, they figured out a way to do it. There's no room at all for growth, it was just totally packed in.
Well, I think this is a fantastic project. I mean, I think putting everything all in one location, I mean, getting it all together, I mean, that's...
I was very surprised. I actually had looked pretty hard at buying an existing building. And I was very surprised that CDS and the City Hall employees both very much wanted to be together, which I think would be a great efficiency also. But I mean, they were all really in favor of that concept. So.
Yeah, it'd be really good to have everybody down in one spot where they could, because everybody works together. Really no matter what department they're in, but I know like building and planning and inspectors and everybody just kind of works together. It'd be good to build it.
So explain to me on the rendering there where the 2-story building is and where it's going to end up.
So the 2-story building's right here, this existing. This is the corridor, we got stairs on the other side, we got stairs on this side. Mechanical's here, mechanical, and behind.
So we're looking.
This is where
we're looking from.
Chief Graves used to sit right here.
So we're looking from the highway
Yeah.
to the west.
Yeah.
At the broad end of the building there.
This is east side.
Okay.
So the new
This
part's
is all
in the
original.
front there, on the right-hand side.
I understand that they're taking now away from the parking area that's available for you for other things.
Oh, we're adding some parking in there.
Yeah, a lot of it's on the grass. That's
Uh,
grass in front there.
See, we're talking about
I think for me personally, I'd like to see a whole bunch more detail in there before I'm willing to buy into this program. Frankly, in terms of how the site's going to be utilized and where this building footprint is going to be and a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, you'll see that in the future.
Well, I want to see that.
I'm presenting
I want to see
well,
that.
it's not there right now.
Huh?
It's being developed right now.
Well, I understand that, but you're looking at an ultimate plan for the building. I want to see how that's going to fit on that site, and where the parking is going to be.
Yeah, you'll see that in the future.
Well, I understand you'll see it in the future.
What we're voting on next week is the existing building.
Right,
And
right.
that's why the chief made the point, if you just did that and stopped, I mean, it's freestanding.
Yeah, right, it is. But it's presuming, the plan is presuming all of this will materialize because you're sizing all of the electrical infrastructure that you're upgrading to meet this demand. Now, what happens if you don't build all of this facility at this location?
Well, we already know we're gonna.
I understand, I know what you're gonna build. You're gonna build.
We're gonna take care of this and take care of this anyhow, because it's already existing.
But what about the building in the back here that's where the city hall is?
And it's gonna be there for future.
Which is the upper part of that floor plan.
It's gonna be there for future growth. The infrastructure ought to be in place, Larry. It'll already be in place to be able to build upon.
Right, and so if you don't build that wing up there,
And the infrastructure will be there if you ever want to build that wing on there.
well, I'm suggesting that maybe that's not the location for that wing, in my humble opinion. I think we're trying to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound site.
So, I'm asking for this right now. So all I did is,
Yeah, I understand.
all I'm doing is proposing
Yeah, no,
a future for the city, for the
I hear you.
taxpayers.
I hear you. So we're looking at approving the renovation of the existing old police building.
That's right.
That's what we're looking at. And I'm only suggesting to you that from my perspective, I don't see this as a good plan for the city long-term. Personally, that's my view. Because I think it's the wrong plan for the wrong place. It's too confined and we're not going to get enough expansion out of it for the next 50 years for Bella Vista. That's where I'm coming from. In terms of the city staff component of it, not the fire department, because the fire department will expand with 3 or 4 or 5 additional remote satellite stations. So they will stand alone on their own for the expanded capacity there.
Jerry?
I think, maybe we haven't seen that, but like, looking at an overhead view of the parking, so that you could actually see where the footprint of the building and where parking is going to be in expansion. Yeah.
Being prepared.
Being prepared?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, I apologize for presenting this.
No, that's
No, you
fine.
don't have to
That's a good
apologize.
No,
idea.
I apologize.
Yeah.
You don't have to apologize. You're looking ahead, trying to plan for it. I'm only suggesting that it looks like it's not going to be adequate for the other component of the city. Maybe good for the fire department, and I certainly believe that that's the case. I'm not sure for the city as a whole it's a good deal.
So,
Administratively,
yeah.
Steve.
What's the alternative, though, Larry?
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks for the presentation. So I think that covers everything on our list. And I appreciate all your attention tonight. And we'll see you next Monday. Thanks so much. Aye.